position if you're looking.
Thank you, Fernando. Yeah. We're not doing these job introductions today, but just use Slack for that, whether you're looking for a job or you have a job in your organization that you want to share with others. Use that channel, Slack channel. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. And I'm going to talk about what seems to be a very popular subject these days, at least on Twitter or X, whatever they call it these days. Our story points pointless. So before I get started, I should just probably introduce me. So I'd like to say that I am not a famous jazz musician. I'm also not the guy who wrote the screenplay for a very disturbing movie called American History X, but also not me. I am an Agile coach. I was a Scrum Master for a while, blogger. So I'm SAFe certified, certified through IC Agile for a bunch of coaching things. I used to bend iron bars in my mouth for fun and profit. I used to do all kind of strongman stuff. I wrote a book called The Art of Scrum, which I think is still available on Amazon. I work with kids every chance I get. I get up in front of people and talk every opportunity I get. And I try to play a mean bass guitar every opportunity I get. So that's me. I worked with Ken for a while back when we were CA. Ken and I were Agile coaches as part of that organization, and we kept the relationship up. Also worked with folks like Veronica Roth and Eric Willicke, who are going to be speaking next month and stuff like that. So I've been around the Agile block. I also run the local Agile meetup here in Pittsburgh called Pit Agile. So that's me. I'm currently a Agile coach. We call Brock. So let's get on with the icebreaker, shall we? So I'll just basically go through my list as it shows in Zoom, and kind of call your name. You can unmute yourself. I got two questions for you. The first one is, who are you and where do you work? Where do you apply your trade, right? Because we don't know each other. And the second one, I like this icebreaker. If they're going to make a movie about your life, your Agile successes and failures, who would play you in that movie? And I would say for me, obviously anybody from Duck Dynasty, or Drew Carey, I think would probably fit me pretty well. Even though he's technically not an actor, he hosts The Price is Right. But hey, I'm not going to split hairs. All right, so Natalie, you're next to my list.
Oh, that's really a difficult question for me because I'm not a fan of, well, I do like TV series, and maybe if we remember Billions, and one single woman actress that I would like to play me would be that. Have you guys watched Billions?
I have. And I can't think of the name of the actress you're talking. I know who you're talking about. I can't think of her name. But then, of course,
yeah, I don't remember their names, but the one who plays that third gender person, probably that actor or actress would play me. I would appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Okay, Andrea.
Okay. Do you have anything to say before telling which actor or actress I would like
if you want to just talk about where you work, what you do, or if not, just share the actor or actress. It's okay. This is a friendly group.
So I am Andrea. I am part of the organizer group. So I've been coming to the Princeton Agility group for a couple of years now, and I work as in some kind of capacity as product owner in a telecom company. And right now, if an actress would play my life, I would like to be Katharine Hepburn. I have the Philadelphia Story on my playlist for the coming weeks. So I'm all in that old 50s movie trip.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Fernando.
All right. So the actor will be Tom Cruise, of course.
Well,
'Cause-
naturally, I see the resemblance.
yes, yes. We share a birthday, and I like to see him try this Hispanic accent.
All right.
So I'm an agile coach. I'm with Cognizant right now.
Thank you. All right, the next person is AK.
Hello everyone. I just came on I just joined the group. I'm in um the webinar. If I get what you're trying to say, that we should talk about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Akim Ijila. Um I'm a pharmacy technician, and hopefully very soon I'll become an agile coach because I'm it's a career that it's a new place that I see myself venturing into. So that's why I'm here. Um, just to learn more.
Okay. And if there's a movie made about your life, who would play you as an actor? And that is, what do you have a favorite actor that you'd like to play you?
Actor, actress. I would like to be Jesus that comes to this world and save the whole world.
Okay. That's a pretty big job. That's a good one. All right, Andre.
Andre Bondi, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I say something wrong?
Go ahead, Andre.
I'm on board
Oh.
a train, actually. I'd probably want to have Michael Caine playing me and the film in question is Educating Rita. I'm a part-time professor at Stevens Institute of Technology, and I've worked at 2 major corporate research labs in New Jersey and a couple of startups. And I'm interested in the metrics because they came up in the courses that I teach.
All right. Thank you. All right, next on my list is Crystal. Crystal, going once, twice. And we'll come back to you if you can unmute. After Crystal, I have Dave, and not me, another Dave.
Oh, I'm not sorry for saying Crystal. I am cooking in the background, so if you're hearing a lot of background noise from my oil frying, sorry about that. I work in data science and I lead a team of data scientists. We use an agile-like framework for our operations. So I'm just trying to learn a little bit more about agile to keep us running smoothly going forward.
All right, thank you, Crystal. What about Gary Cohen?
Yeah, so I'm an independent organizational change and agile consultant, especially around software product companies and those sort of things, just outside of Philadelphia. And I guess actor I would like to play me in a film would either be Bradley Cooper because he's a big Eagles fan, just like me,
So
or James Earl Jones because he's a big Michigan fan, just like me. So,
all right. Thank you. All right, Jerry.
Hey guys, Jerry here. I am a agile coach at a financial service firm working in a call center technology group. Thinking about it, I think I'd say Matt Damon because I want it to be serious, but it would probably turn out to be Adam Sandler.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you, Jerry. How about Joe E?
Hi, everyone. Joe Evangelista here. I've probably worked in in an agile environment from both a financial services firm and a nonprofit organization for probably over 14 years or so. So I've seen a lot of things go back and forth, and this topic is really interesting when it comes to finding how, story pointing, or even if it is possible, especially with what we all deal with on a project management basis. The actor who would play me, who would want to play me. Does anybody know a good, like, everyday, frustrated everyday actor type person? I'm trying to think of a best one. John Cho's one, who's like, who's always that guy who's there and might have some of that action star, but in reality, he's just like an everyday guy just trying to get through stuff and dealing with situations in a less than heroic way.
I'd go with Bruce Willis, Die Hard, which is a Christmas movie.
There you go. It is Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
All right. Thank you. All right. My apologies if I say your name wrong, but Katarzyna? Is that it?
Yeah, it's Katarzyna. Hi, everybody. I know it's hard to pronounce. So I moved from Poland to US a few months ago, and unfortunately I needed to leave my work in Europe due to time difference. I was working as Scrum Master in UK-based company in big travel agency, and we were mostly working there in SAFe framework. So regarding actresses that would play me in a movie, that's a hard question, but when I was a bit younger, and I don't really see this comparison, I heard a lot that I look a little bit like Scarlett Johansson, especially in the movie Girl with Pearl Earring about Vermeer painting.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe she's a little bit older than me, but maybe it can work.
Oh, good. Thank you. All right. How about Katiana?
Hi, I'm a Scrum Master at the Tennessee Department of Transportation, and an actress to play me. I would love it if it were Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Once again, my apologies if I say your name wrong. How about Lakshmi?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, this is Lakshmi Narayanan. I am a graduate student. I have around 20 years of experience in India, and currently I'm looking for a job, and I'm also a Scrum Master certified. And with regarding the actor, I prefer John Travolta for this role. Thank you.
Hi. With hair or without hair? You don't have to answer that question. All right. How about Luciana? Did I say that right?
Thank you. It's Luciana.
Okay, yeah, well, that's close.
Yeah, you're close. I got invited by Ken Roberts. We actually work together via Cola Consultants. I'm a consultant as an agile coach. Actress that I really like that could play me would be Viola Davis.
Oh, okay, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't have no idea how to pronounce this one. It's Luis Adron, Luizadраgon something.
No worries. It starts from dragon.
Okay.
It's Louisa. Yes. Unfortunately, the name was kind of concatenated. So it's Louisa. I am from Toronto, Canada. This is the first time when I join your team. So I'm looking forward for such a beautiful subject with, the points. I am working in Agile Scrum Master and Agile Coach for over 10 years. Well, 20 years in project management and Agile together. And mostly in financial industry for all the 5 banks in Canada. I worked in Boston as well. And the actress that I would like to play me is actually Melissa McCarthy. And I'm thinking the movie Genie. So I want to be able to grant some wishes for the holidays to everyone.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. That is a noble thing to want, for sure.
Yes.
All right. How about Mark Padberg?
Hi, everyone. Mark Paberg. I'm from Montclair, New Jersey. Been doing agile project management. I like the Crystal's mentioned about the semi-agile for a long time now. Currently in transition. If I wanted to have an actor, I actually have two choices, both based on personalities and kind of the people that they play. Christian Slater, because he's always kind of, I used to look like him when I had hair a long time ago. And Chris Eccleston, who was the remake of the Doctor Who
Yeah.
back to life. One great actor. So
I do like that guy. Yeah. Well, thank you. Marie, JD.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marie. This is my first time at this meetup, and I joined it out of pure curiosity. I am currently an employed systems trainer, and the actress that would play me, I would think I've chosen Zendaya.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. All right. How about Namita? Did you say that?
Hi, everyone. I'm a project manager and consultant, so I'm in between contracts right now. The actress that I would want to play me is Frida Pinto. I've been told we look alike. So.
Thank you. All right, Randy. Obviously, the actor's Brad Pitt, right?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Randy England. I work with Dave at Broadcom. I've been doing this Agile thing for, it'll be 20 years next year. I'm in the Chicago area here. And I guess if I had to pick an actor, unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but I'd pick Robin Williams because I love his sense of humor and I like to have fun at work.
You do like to have fun at work. You need it as a coping mechanism for working with me, right? Okay.
That's right.
All right. Sheila McGrath.
As far as work, I've worked in financial services, telecom, healthcare, hospitality, transportation, travel, and I've worked as a product program and project manager and a Scrum Master and Agile coach. I think I've done some other things too in other industries, but at the moment I'm in transition. As far as an actress, I think I'd pick Jodie Foster, and I believe one of the roles she won an Academy Award for, The Accused. The event took place a few blocks from where I lived while I was going to college.
Oh, okay. All right, another person who has the unfortunate distinction of working with me, Sharon.
Hello, I'm Sharon, and I'm a Scrum Master, and I also worked along with Randy. But Dave is my Agile coach in Pittsburgh, and the actress I would have is Jamie Lee Curtis because some people have said I resemble her.
Okay. Steve Thomas.
Hello, I'm Steve Thomas. I'm a DevOps coach at Verizon. I try and help people learn about Agile, DevOps, and other principles without using those words. And the actor I would like to have play me is also deceased Humphrey Bogart, because he had cool hats and he was cool.
He was cool. He was cool. But he did have cool hats. And yes, I have the same distinction of trying to teach Agile DevOps without saying Agile or DevOps sometimes. That's fun. All right, yeah. Tia Sims or Sims? Tia going once? Twice? All right. How about Yvonne?
Hi, good evening. My name is Yvonne from Philadelphia, and I'm here today just to learn more about this topic because I've heard of various schools of thoughts on when it could be used and when it shouldn't be used. So I just wanted to get some more information. I've worked as a project program manager and as a Scrum Master for for-profit and nonprofit entities. But as far as an actress that I think could play me, I like Tessa Thompson. So if anybody knows her from Creed, if you're into that franchise, she played the supporting girlfriend / wife. But yeah, I think Tessa Thompson would play me well.
Okay.
Okay.
Did I miss anybody? Oh, I'm echoing. Okay. Thank you all for sharing. I like to do icebreakers like that because it gives us a little glimpse into our personal lives. So that's a good one. So thank you all for playing along. Okay, some house rules here. Number one, I'm pretty laid back when I present. So we could hold questions to the end, or we could ask them as I go. Either one would be fine with me. I also have a very bad habit of speaking fast. Tell you a story. I lived in Germany for 3 years, and I got very good at speaking German. And the Germans would tell me I spoke German too fast. So I'm a lost cause. So you're not going to offend me or hurt my feelings if you tell me to slow down if I'm speaking another language. All right, that's okay. So with that, let's get rolling here. So we kind of touched on this already, but what happens? You tell somebody about agile estimation, and you will encounter a range of emotions. Some people, to me, I call it the agile religious wars. And you see the same thing with SAFe versus Scrum versus Kanban, same thing. Story points versus hashtag no estimates versus whatever. People, they kind of build their camp and they don't want to hear anything else. And that's not the way we're supposed to be. And I kind of look at it this way. Agile's not rigid. It's a framework, and frameworks are meant to be adaptive, right? It's kind of like playing the game of chess. All right. And this is how I try to explain agile to people. To play chess, you have to understand how the pieces move, right? The knight makes the L, and the bishop goes diagonally, and the rook can go vertically or horizontally, and the queen does whatever she wants. Once you learn the rules for how to move the pieces, how you play the game is totally up to you. And here's a story. Back when I was in 6th grade, a long time ago, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, we decided we were going to have a chess tournament within my 6th grade class. And I said, I'm going to win this thing. So what I did was I bought a bunch of chess books and I studied a bunch of moves. And I basically learned 5 moves that can, this 5 move routine that I thought could beat anybody. And I worked until I played somebody who knew how to play chess. And they wiped me out. They beat me before I knew what happened. The idea is how you play the game is completely up to you. And one of the things that Michael Spade will tell you is that there's a difference between complicated and complex. Right? Complicated is like a jet engine, 747 jet engine, right? That's a very complicated piece of machinery. But if you're a trained mechanic and know how to work on that engine, you can tear it apart and put it back together again, and no big deal, right? But we don't work in complicated environments. We work in complex environments. A complicated environment, things are linear. You do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. A complex environment is like the game of chess. After the first 2 moves, I think there's like 500,000 possibilities for what the third move can be. So you have to sense and respond. So this is kind of why my thoughts about Agile is. I heard some of you say during the icebreaker, right, we do sort of Agile. It's okay. Do what makes sense for you. As long as you're not breaking the core tenets of Agile, what I call the guide rails, you'll be fine. How you play the game is totally up to you, and how you apply these things is totally up to you. So let's talk about how I, as an Agile coach story points. And of course, if you go out on the Twitter or the X or anything else, you'll find, like I said, varying degrees of what people think about story points. This guy says, this Chris McCann says, what is velocity? Better. What is estimation? There's a pervasive misconception that if you check all the Agile boxes, planning, poker, story points, sprints, etc., that you're magically get good at estimation for free. And as thousands of people have discovered, that is wrong. All right. So let me ask you guys a question. How tall are these rocks? Anybody have any ideas? Now, without getting out a measuring tape and measuring them, we'd be estimating how tall the rocks are, right? So what's that mean? Well, as human beings, we are not good at estimating. So, and this stuff like the cone of uncertainty comes into play, right? and I think there were studies done that says when we estimate how long a job is going to take, it's pretty much a 4 times variation. But we fail really hard understanding how right that is. But this is why we are reluctant to give estimates, because for some reason, with leadership's mind, estimates become commitments, and that's not good. And the other mistake that we make is we think that time is on our side, meaning we equate story points to time. Almost every team I've worked with started out equating story points to time. Some still do, but that's wrong. And as Mike Cohn would say, calling them points when they're really just hours introduces needless complexity. It makes things harder than they have to be. And we lose the main benefit of story points. So, I love to ask people what we've done wrong with Agile, because Agile was not created by a bunch of CEOs. It was not created by a bunch of leadership. There are a bunch of software developers got together and said, let's figure out better ways to do this stuff, right? It's supposed to make your life better. It's supposed to create happy workers and happy customers. So when I hear somebody say they hate Agile, I say, why? Tell me why. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they're doing something wrong, like equating story points with hours. So what we are good at as human beings is comparison, right? So if I would, once again, ask you how many square feet is each house in this picture, I'd get some guesses, and we'd probably be wrong, to be honest with you. But if I would say, for example, how big of a job do you think it would be to paint the house in the middle? Small, medium, large, extra large. And you would say, it's probably large. Okay, so if the house in the middle is large, how big of a job is the house on the right, that big house? And you say, oh, that's extra, extra large, right? There you go. That is relative sizing. You figure out a baseline and you compare to it. And that's where you get the goodness of story points, right? And the thing about relative sizing, it never decays. That house on the right is always going to be a lot bigger than the house in the middle, no matter what, right? And that's the idea. And this is how we apply things at the story level. So back to the rocks. Right? Basically, what we're looking for is a common understanding of size. We don't want to be precise. And we don't want to say that, the rock on the right is twice as big as the rock in the middle. It doesn't work that way. But this is how we understand it. So now, once again, how big is the rock in the middle? It's a medium. Okay, if the rock in the middle is a medium, what is the rock on the left? It's probably a smaller and extra small. Once again, relative sizing. So that's how I start to talk about story points. But then I bring in one of my favorite movies, The Three Amigos. And if you haven't seen this movie, go get it somewhere, because it's an excellent movie. Chevy Chase, Martin Short, and Steve Martin. Great movie, very funny movie. But the three amigos I always introduce when I'm talking about story points are these guys: complexity, effort, and doubt. All right. Whenever you're talking about any chunk of work, these are the 3 things you need to think about. Complexity. How complex is the work you're about to do? Right. Effort. How much effort is required, do you think? And doubt. What don't you know? Right. And you take that and you also take that expected relative effort and you kind of also figure out what's going on. So, for example, we have 2 stories to be sized. Lick 500 stamps and put them on envelopes, or perform a super simple brain surgery procedure. Now, you might say, hey, those 2 stories might take about the same amount of time, but do you have the proper skills to do those stories? I don't know. Also, let's think about that for a second, table that, and let's think about this. Okay. Let's say that me and my buddy Mike here are going to go for a walk. Mike, let's pretend now Mike lives in Texas, but he's visiting me, and I'm in Boulder, Colorado, right? And I've lived in Boulder at a very high altitude all my life, right? During lunch one day, we decided to go for a walk. It was a beautiful day. We wanted to get some time to catch up. So we still had to get back in time for our next meeting in 45 minutes, right? So I say, hey, this should take us about 8 minutes to do this walk, and I say, and I would say, yeah, but coming up from sea level my first time, I think it's going to take us a lot longer than that, right? So the path they were considering is easy to see, and they both agreed that it looked to be about 1 mile in length. Following that they still had to eat before returning, they thought they should estimate the time that would take, right? So, like we said, Mike lives at altitude, and is really familiar with the route. So he was very certain it would probably take less than 8 minutes. I wasn't so sure because I just showed up the day before, hadn't had a really good night's sleep, and and I wasn't used to the altitude. So, I thought it'd take a bit longer. So who's right? The answer is both of us, right? But the length of the path didn't change. So story points are like the distance in our formula. We can agree on how far from done we are collectively, but the time it takes it may change based on many factors: skill level, familiarity with the code, unknowns encountered during the thing, the three amigos, right? This is the kind of stuff that we have to take into effect. So let's go back to our stories to be sized, right? Lick 500 stamps, put them on an envelope, or perform a super simple brain surgery procedure. First question, if I have somebody on my team who's familiar with brain surgery and they want to go do the 500 stamp story, is that really a good use of their time? And also, do I want anybody on my team doing brain surgery? I would think if I go to do the brain surgery, it's going to take me a lot longer than the brain surgeon. And those are the kind of things to think about as we start to think about sizing stories. And I don't know where this came from. This is something out in the Agile world that says that you should size your stories so that if anybody in the team would do them. That's wrong. We don't do work that way, right? There's a brain surgeon on the team. I want him doing the brain surgery, not licking stamps. That's just the way it is, right? So that's something else to think about when you're sizing. But let's go back to the three amigos: complexity, effort, and doubt. So let's look at some stories. Story number one, you can kind of see that the complexity got a decent size of complexity, and the effort and the doubt are about the same. Story two has a ton of effort, not a whole lot of doubt, a little bit of complexity. Story three has massive complexity and doubt, and probably about as much effort as story two. So what do we do with these, right? So the idea is they come together in different ways, depending on the story and what we're talking about here. But all these measures should be something you think about when you're doing your estimation. So, we would say, okay, this story one, I think that's a medium, right? And if story one's a medium, I would think story two is probably a medium too. But what's story three? Well, it's at least a large. But is it double extra large? I don't know. So this is why we bring in the Fibonacci sequence, right? Fibonacci sequence helps us to really get a little more granular on our estimates, right? So basically, the simplification, it's a mathematical thing, and the simplification of it, you get a bigger graph as you go further out, right? Most of us, we start at 1, and we want to avoid the illusion of precision. So that's why it goes, 1 is, 2 is double of 1, but 3 is not double of 2, that kind of thing, right? And 5 is definitely not a double of 2 or 3. So that's the idea. It's the idea is you can't do any kind of mathematical games to try to game the system with it, right? And we always say that that's how this is where it goes. And anything over an 8 or 13 is probably not big enough to fit into a sprint. So okay, we come back here. So we say story one's a 5. That's kind of a medium, and story two's a 5. But story 3 is probably a 13 because of all the complexity and the doubt there, right? We want something more quantifiable there. That's how I kind of coach story points. Is if you have a lot of complexity and doubt, you kind of have to inflate that story point number because that's what's going to happen 9 times out of 10. I'm not saying sandbag. I'm saying be realistic. And of course, the sliding scales, right? If once you get above like a 13, that this stuff over here, this is stuff you have to split, right? And that's the other thing that I find valuable about story points is it kind of shows you where you have to start splitting stories if you start estimating that way. But the reason that we size stories, there's only really only reason to do it, and that is to find out what's going to fit in a sprint. All right, that's why we do it. And why do we do it? Because every single team I've ever worked with will come into a sprint planning meeting and say, I can eat this whole pizza in one sitting. They always think they can do more work than they actually can do. And the story points gains a conversation about what they can truly fit into a sprint, right? Kind of works like this. And the idea is low precision equals more accuracy. Why do I say that? Well, look at this little chart here. So let's say your user story was, I want you to estimate how many brownies I eat in a year. What would you do? Well, you could Google the average brownie consumption of somebody in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Or you can ask my family how many brownies they think I eat in a week and extrapolate out to 52. Or you could follow me around for a month and then extrapolate that out. See, the problem is that there's diminishing returns on estimation, right? And actually follow me around for a month and seeing how many brownies I eat probably isn't a good use of our time, right? Because we want to spend less time planning and more time doing, or less time planning and more time finishing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's the idea. But don't, some teams get hung up on being perfect with their estimates and they go way overboard. You have to be that way. So the whole team estimates. This is the other powerful thing about story points. Why? It forces conversation. If I say the story is a 3, Randy says it's a 5, and we can have a discussion on, why do I think it's a 3? Why do you think it's a 5? And then we have to come to consensus about what the size of it really is. It also identifies gaps in understanding. We can actually figure out, hey, we got to understand this thing a little better. Maybe do a spike and figure it out, or maybe the team needs to do some training to understand what's going on. So, we is always smarter than me, like it says here. And, the product owner can get involved in estimates. But once again, here's the core tenet of Agile that I see get broken a lot. The people that do the work estimate it, not the manager, not the PO, right? The people actually doing the work. The PO's job is to let the team understand the value and the customer benefit for each story, right? And put acceptance criteria on the story so the team knows exactly what to build. He should also push the team for cheaper alternatives. One of the things I love to say about Agile is that it's not about taking a big chunk of work, splitting it up into small little pieces and doing it every sprint and then still building the big thing. It's a learning framework, meaning let's do this work. What can we learn from about this work to understand what we're going to do next sprint? Or what I like to tell teams all the time is, how can we achieve our sprint goal without finishing all the stories? Do we have to do all this work to achieve our sprint goal? That's the idea, right? And always be aware of the abilities, which we'll talk about, scalability, usability, non-functional requirements. And the PO should always accept the team's judgment regarding the sizes of things, right? The manager and the PO should not be pushing the team to make things bigger or smaller. And non-functional requirements, system qualities, reliability, usability, scalability, constraints, all this kind of stuff that you have to think about along with the actual work that's being done. So what's the problem? The big problem with story points is teams and managers equate story points to a unit of time. They think it's a way to normalize the cost of work, and it's not. Because once again, we are horrible at judging time. If you don't believe me, next time you take your car to a shop, let me know how that works out. Because every time my car goes in for repairs, it'll take a day, a week later, I still have my car. Not because the mechanic is bad or he's trying to screw me over, it's because of the fact he didn't know, right? Complexity, effort, and doubt. But here's the other thing. This is one of the big problems that we had with the Scaled Agile framework, is now they want a fully formed and complete backlog, and that has to become a necessary record for the management team. Not really. We're supposed to refine things as we go and kind of plan enough to get the next amount of work done, but not planning too far out in that horizon, because we expect things to change. That's the definition of Agile, right? So that's the idea, right? So we come up with these ideas like, story points are made up, so velocity doesn't matter. That's another problem. The problem is that me and Sharon and Randy work with mainframe teams. We're with people that spent 30 years putting things in 8-byte registers. So they're very precise, right? And you say, we're going to make a number up and it's going to tell us when we're going to get done. They don't believe you, right? So what do we do about that? And this is kind of where this whole no estimates thing came from, right? What is no estimates? Well, I did what anybody in the year 2023 would do to understand no estimates. I asked ChatGPT what it was. So basically, it challenges the traditional practice of providing time and effort estimates to the task. It says that we should be able to do this work and be able to predict when we're going to be done without doing any kind of estimation, right? So they
not sure I agree with that, but go ahead.
No, this is what ChatGPT said, but that's okay. Basically, the idea is, and I'm, no estimates, that's great, that's another camp. But the idea is that an Agile team has better things to do, or they're more valuable uses of their time than estimation. Could be. And they use things like flow metrics and stuff like that to do that. So let's kind of talk about what's going on here. So, and this, of course, we have this other undercurrent. It says every time I have any kind of meeting about breaking down Agile development and using story points, I come away with a lower opinion of Agile as a methodology. Yeah, especially if it's not being done correctly. But here's the idea that we need to think about, and that is, how does work get done, right? So in a very simplified thing, you define the work, you wait, right? And eventually you start to actually do the work, and then you work on it until it's done. Well, that's what we like to believe, right? But actually, it looks kind of like this, right? Where we have wait work, with this something called non-value add time and value add time. So in reality, it tends to start and stop while we're doing. So it's the doing that some people will refer to as cycle time or lead time, right? And some people say lead time includes both cycle time and wait time. Some people just say it's just the time you're actually doing the work. There's different ways you could measure this, but this is the idea. And the thing is that, we need to focus to get things done, right? Because the idea is to focus and get, revenue as quickly and as early as we can. But as we all know, there's a tax, right? And it's the context switching tax, right? So, this is why dedicated teams are important, right? And this is one of the things Agile says is you have a cross-functional self-managed team, and you give them the gift of focus, right? So I'm gonna read a little bit out of an InfoQ article. Multitasking gets you there later. It's written by a guy named Roger Brown from 2010. And he says, a person who works more than one project incurs a cost at each shift from one project to the other. The primary cost is the time required to change. We know that simple interruptions, like a phone call, can cost as much as 15 minutes of recovery time. The more complex the task, the more time it takes to make the shift. If you're working on more than two projects, the cost can be even greater. It may have been a long time since you worked on that project, taking more effort to remember where you left off. Alternatively, if you shift frequently, your context switching time is a larger portion of your work time. There are studies that show that people are pretty good at shifting between two contexts for small tasks. In a short time scale, though, this appears to have to do with our two brain hemispheres. To a certain extent, we can parallel process two independent tasks. For larger switches, we should expect more switching cost. So he basically shows this escalating context switching in this chart here. So there's a test, and I think we don't want to agree with that, right? And it's one thing at a time. We have to get things done. So that's one thing to think about. The other thing is the theory of constraints, right? So the theory of constraints is a management basically paradigm that views any manageable system as being limited in achieving more of its growth by a very small number of constraints. So at least one constraint. The theory of this constraint uses a formula to identify the constraint and restructure the rest of the organization around it. So basically, what do? You identify a constraint. It could be a resource, a policy, maybe a blocker, and you exploit that constraint. How can I get the most capacity out of this constraint? And then subordinate all the processes to align to your decision and elevate the constraint. Make other changes to break that constraint and then back to one. Right. So it's the theory of constraints is something to think about too. And this comes in a Little's law, right? How can we predict how long it's going to take something based on the size of the queue? Now, I will caution you, this looks like an algebraic equation. It's not, because things are not linear in the world, right? But in its simplest form, cycle times equals the number of items in process divided by the items completed per time period. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard this example. Use the example of a coffee shop. All right, so you walk into Starbucks, and it takes an average of 2 minutes for the barista to make a coffee drink. So most people order lattes, right? If you're the only person in line, the one in front of you, how long is it going to take to get your drink? 2 minutes, right? One person in front of you has a slightly more complex order, maybe an extra minute. Maybe it'll take you 5 minutes. Now there are 3 people in front of you who've paid. How long will it take to get your drink? Well, figure it out. So it's 3 times 2, 2 minutes for yours, 8 minutes. The chance of variability increases when those 3 people do different stuff. So maybe a guy is ordering for the whole office, so he's ordering 8 drinks, not 1. Or a guy wants to get a sandwich or something they have to put in they have to prepare. That's going to add to the time. So how can they get around that? Well, can they start all the drinks at one time? Well, that probably wouldn't work because you all get cold coffee, right? Because pour the coffee, then do whatever has to be done, then hand all the drinks out. That wouldn't work. So maybe everybody waits much longer in that thing too. So the way you do it is you either shrink the queue by adding another barista, right? Or simplify the work somehow. So, and a better way to understand this is think about Disney World, right? You go to Disney World and it's a fat guy's nightmare. I'm a fat guy. I can tell you, hey, let's go down 90-degree heat and stand around a line all day. That sounds like a wonderful day to me, right? But if you're in Disney World and you're in line for something, they have these updatable displays. Just that time I was there, that basically says, hey, 10 minutes from this point, and it changes as it understands the length of the queue, right? Because guess what? It's not linear. It's not just 100 people in line to ride a ride. It takes 2 minutes per person, 2 minutes per iteration, because you have this thing called Fast Pass. People can jump to the front of the line, and they can jump into different places of the line if they paid more money. So Disney takes all this into consideration using Little's law to figure out that what's going on. So it's the size of the queue by work in progress. Hopefully I didn't confuse you with that. So there you go. 4 coffee orders in process. Half order per minute. It's going to take you 8 minutes to get there. So that brings us to cycle time. And this is something called a scatter plot. So cycle time is a tool that we use quite a bit in Broadcom to try to understand how a team is really performing and how we can try to help a team. So what we normally do is, most teams are using a Scrum board or a Kanban board to track their work through a sprint or duration. We like to, basically there's states of that board. And usually it's like, waiting, in progress, testing, blah, blah, blah. It'll go from in progress to accepted. There'll be different kind of states on that board. What we like to do is we like to not track it from in progress to done. We like to track it from in progress to accepted, meaning the product owner accepted it, and I'll show you why. So this is a core metric. And every dot on this scatter plot is a user story. And over here on the left-hand side is how many days it took to get done. So you see it had one up here, took almost 45 days, but most of them are down here around this time, right? So basically what we're doing is we are looking at the cycle times of the stories and we're adding things to it. So what we like to do is we like to add predictability to it, right? So what we'd like to say is the 50th percentile, the 85th percentile, and the 90th percentile. And it's a very scientific thing we do. 50% of the stories fall below the 50th percentile line, right? So, and 85% of them fall below the 85 percentile line. So we do that and we understand that that's what's going on. And the 50th percentile is usually the average cycle time. Now, I'll kind of break out of this and I'll kind of show you. 75%, 95%. We like to use 85 and 90. 85% is kind of the industry standard for what they call an SLA, which means 85% of your stories fall below that line. But the way I like to explain it to people is you want to get your 85th percentile down below a sprint. Why? Because then you've given your product owner a lot of power, because now any story I pull out of the backlog with an 85% chance is going to finish within 5 days, say, for example. That's how this kind of works. This is the predictability metrics we start to work on. So let me kind of break out of here and kind of show you what we got going on here. But one more thing to talk about before I kind of show you some of our cycle time charts is WIP. Okay, WIP stands for work in progress or work in process, right? And the best way I can explain WIP to you is a small child trying to eat 2 ice cream cones on a very hot day. Usually ends up in a mess, right? That's a problem. So the idea is when WIP and utilization become too high, you'll see a sudden and catastrophic reduction in throughput because of the context switching tax we talked about, right? So the idea is manage your WIP, process your WIP, focus on getting stuff done. So that means, hey, some Scrum teams, 1 person per story at the start of a sprint, but maybe you should say, hey, what if we doubled up on that story? Can we get it done faster? Right? The goal is to get things done in the end, right? That's what we want to see. And if we look at WIP, we can almost see that throughput goes up as WIP goes down almost all the time. So let me kind of show you some examples of this here. So I'm going to use some real. So what we do is we use Rally as our one source of truth. That's where teams put their user stories and everything, and that's how we run our Scrum boards. Now you can use this works whether you use Jira or anything else really. What we did was we have these spreadsheets. What we like to do is we like to take them and we like to kind of look at what's going on. So for example, and this is some old stuff because of course I don't want to give away all the secrets of the world, especially you guys. But here we go. So here's one of the spreadsheets we put together. And Randy was really integral in putting these spreadsheets together because I suck at Rally. I mean, I suck at Excel. I suck at Rally too. But anyway, here is a team, and this kind of shows the cycle time chart. You can kind of see that the green line's 50th percentile, the red, orange line is 85th and the green is 95th. You can kind of see what's going on here. Now, if you kind of look at what's happening, you see this guy's got a lot of stuff done, right? But you can also see there's some outliers up here, like this guy up here. This guy took a very long time to get done, right? And some of these other ones did too. So what you can kind of see as we kind of get closer to what's going on now, they're kind of correcting that. The course correcting. There's not a whole lot of stories up here above the 85th percentile. They're starting to come down. Right? So these are the kind of things you can kind of tell. What I like to do is, coach my scrum masters to have the conversations about the outliers. What happened? What can we learn from the stories that took so long, right? Something else we do is we track the 85th percentile. If I go back here, the data screen, you can kind of see we're tracking the 85th percentile over time and seeing if it's going up or down. We call it the SLE, right? That's one team. And we have these other charts we do that kind of talks about the overview charts. But, here's the story cycle time as opposed to the points achieved and the stories completed. We kind of take a look. We look for trends through here, right? And down here, you'll kind of see WIP versus throughput, and you'll kind of see the black is the max sprint WIP, and the blue is the story throughput. And these guys weren't doing much up to this point, but I got a better example to show you. So let's go to a different team here, and we'll see some other interesting things we'll see from the actual cycle time analysis. So here is another team. Same kind of deal. We can kind of see that as the WIP goes up here, the story is completed. Do the same thing. Now, let's go look at their scatter plot because there is some cool stuff here. So you can kind of see these guys have the same idea here, but there's some stuff going on here that you can kind of start to see. See these vertical lines? That's something we kind of look for. You can see it's kind of a little bit over here, and it kind of goes away. Vertical lines means that the product owner is only accepting stories on certain days. These guys doesn't really show much. If I go to this other team here, if I go to the Harbor Masters, and show you their stuff. So their scatter plot shows a very different story. See, so if you look at these guys, you'll see, look at all these vertical lines over here. These guys this product owner was really accepting story. And if I look at this time, it's probably pretty close to sprint end or when he's in the office. But notice from here forward, that behavior kind of starts to go away. And over here, it's almost non-existent because this is when they got a new product owner around this time. And once again, like we got one up here, it's over 100 days. That's kind of an outlier. Sometimes I'll just say, let's throw that out and see what the 85th percentile looks like without it. But all these points are good conversation points to talk about how the team's doing, right? This is what we want to look at. And the same thing with the overview charts. We can kind of see stuff with this, how cycle time's running, how a story is completed, correlate to the points achieved and the cycle time. And then, and there we go, the throughput in the WIP, right? You kind of can see, once again, the kind of stories completed kind of peaked here, kind of went down, but that's okay. Once again, it kind of works into what kind of track the SME. Randy, anything you want to add here? If Randy's still here. No, I'll just continue on. So that's kind of what we do with cycle time and throughput with these guys. So it's once again, there's a school of thought that says that once your team gets to the point of being mature, you can use things like cycle time and throughput to gauge how much work a team can put into a sprint. And I would agree, as long as the team is A, pretty mature, and B, the work doesn't change a whole lot. Because once the work changes, or something new comes in, or something that has a whole lot of complexity or doubt, that kind of changes things around again. But I've seen teams that have been able to do pretty successfully just using cycle time and WIP and not worrying about estimating. All right, as we continue on, maybe hello, there we go. So yeah. So the other question we want to answer is, when will it be done? It's kind of a big one, right? So we kind of look at this and we're like, okay, when will it be done? Well, enter something called the Monte Carlo simulation. What is the Monte Carlo simulation? Well, it's not just an Agile thing. it's a multiple probability simulation. And it estimates the possible outcomes of an uncertain event. It's modeled after roulette. A guy by the name of Troy McGinnis is who helped Randy and I really start to implement the Monte Carlo simulation. And his website is focusobjectives.com. And he does provide different workshops, including the Monte Carlo simulation, if you're interested in doing something like that.
And Dave, just real quick, I wasn't able to unmute. I was finally got that. I'm just able to get the ability to unmute. But Troy McGinnis was also that cycle time spreadsheet you were showing. I got the basis of that from Troy as well. So he's a great resource. He has a ton of Excel spreadsheets he offers for free. And it's I highly recommend everybody going out and look at his website here.
In fact, if you do go to focusedobjective.com, one of the things that he has out there that Randy and I did, so here is focusedobjective.com, I brought it up. So what we discovered is, guys, I'm out noodling around one day and I see this very workshop about self-paced forecasting using data. Or no, it was this one. It was using Monte Carlo throughput forecasting spreadsheets. I said, hey, this is pretty cool. So Randy and I spent a grand total of $140 and went and talked to $150. I went and saw the thing. And Troy McGinnis, when you talk to him, he's kind of like the movie Rain Man. He's like Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. He is so smart when it comes to numbers. He's like almost like socially awkward. But the guy is brilliant when it comes to this stuff. And we started using his spreadsheets for our Monte Carlo, and like Randy said, we also model it after the stuff we do. And one of the reasons why we went to spreadsheets, we just didn't use our Rally tool directly, is one of the things that drove me nuts about Rally, they still haven't fixed, is their cycle time counts weekends. Which, why would I do that? That means if you start a story on Friday and finish it on Monday, it's 4 days. It really wasn't 4 days, it was 2. And that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons we went to spreadsheets. But let me show you how Monte Carlo works. This is actually pretty cool. So here is, there's 2 flavors of the Monte Carlo thing that we use. Here is one with real data from one of our teams. So what you do is you bring the spreadsheet up and you put in the date you want to start. In this case, it was 5/5/2021, and the date that you think it's going to end. So you don't have to put the end date in, but this kind of gives you a better view of where you're going to land, right? And then how many stories are ready to be completed? And once again, it's a guess. So your low guess is 20 stories. We said the high guess would be 25. So, and then he has this thing called scope complexity. I'll show you this in a second. And for our case, it's clear and understood, right? And then we have this adjusted scope down here, which we'll talk about in a second, right? And he talks about story splitting. We don't really split stories, so we ignore this part. And then, throughput. How many stories do you expect, low and high bounds? We put in 2-week sprints, right? And we're going to use the data to come up with these ideas. What you'll see is over here, it basically said, here's this number, here's when he thinks you're going to get done. So we say we're going to get between 20 and 25 stories done. And it says here that we have less than a coin toss chance to get it done. We want to get it done, which would be there, right? So it says a better chance, somewhat certain we'll get it done by November, and we're almost certain we'll get it done by the end of the year, starting it in May, right? We can watch how this changes. If I say that, if I go from clear and understood, and I say it's not clear and understood, it's actually not really understood at all. Notice how it adjusted our adjusted scope from 30 to 50, and our dates blew up. Now it's saying we got less than a coin toss to get it done by the end of the year. Better chance we're going to get it done by November next year, right? And how's it have these? So it runs 500 computations or mathematical formulas against this. And where's it get its data from? Well, kind of right. So, and also does this thing, this forecast story count. It basically says it's figured there's an 85% chance we can get 12 stories done in 6 2-week sprints. What you do is you come over here and you put in the throughput samples. This is basically how many stories this team got done each sprint. So on sprint 1, I got 1 story done. In sprint 3, I got 2 stories done, 2 stories, 1 1 1 2. Right? If I adjust this, it's going to adjust our output again, right? And something else he does that's pretty cool is if we go over here to charts, this is a burn down chart that kind of shows all 500 computations or actually the first 50 of the 500. And then if you go over here and you start to fill in the remaining stories, so let's say we started with 27. Let's say we got 3 done the first sprint, and there, and we'll say 20. You go back here to the charts, you'll see he starts to plot a line on our little burn down chart here to show how reality is interfacing with what the thing predicted. So what's this give us? To me, it gives us the ability to kind of forecast things in a more precise way. Why do I say more precise? Remember how I said back when I was talking about story points that you go to a super complex, a technical person, and you say, "Hey, we're going to guess how long this is going to take," and in velocity, will tell us when we'll get done, and they'll say, "No way, it's not exact. This is very exact. This is precise. This is mathematical. This is math." Right? It's a much easier conversation with technical people. I also want you to know that we don't really know what this number is going to be, right? I'm not saying that we know for a fact it's going to be between 20 and 25 stories. That could change. So a Monte Carlo simulation is not a one shot, right? You don't do it once at the beginning of a project and say, "Okay, we're going to get done by, February of next year. Go get it." No, it's a constant thing. Every sprint, I coach my Scrum Masters to run a Monte Carlo and see if we're in line or not, or what's going on, because things could change. We're agile, right? The other Monte Carlo simulation that we use quite a bit. Now, once again, we came from the Scaled Agile framework, and we still make use of features and capabilities. So this is a different one. This is called the cut line forecaster. And what you do is you kind of, once again, start date, end date. What's your likelihood? 85%, right? Because what you're doing here is you're saying, I got these features, and this is how many stories I'm guessing are going to be in each feature. And it kind of runs the simulation and says, okay, we think we can get this feature, and this feature done by 4:30. Right? But you're not going to get the rest of this stuff done. And of course, you can always change this around if you want to. And same thing, you go through and you're putting in your samples, how many stories you think you're getting done each sprint. And that's how this stuff gets done. So those are the Monte Carlo simulations. There's also other Monte Carlos. My first vehicle I got when I lived in Germany when I was like 18, I was in the Air Force. It was a BMW. When I came back to the States, my first vehicle was a 1977 Monte Carlo. I want to talk about reality check. Going from a BMW to a 77 Monte Carlo. Anyway, there is this outfit run by Mr. Daniel Vacante, who is, he is a big dude, a big voice in the whole using cycle time and using things like that. And it's called Focused Objectives. And why can't I find it?
It's Actionable Agile.
Agile. I had it up.
Yes, he's Daniel Vacante is a very big Kanban person, and these are pretty much Kanban metrics, but very, very applicable in Scrum. So, and I do highly recommend. He's got a blog called Drunk Agile. It's absolutely hilarious, but it has a ton of very good information. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, Drunk Agile is a good podcast if we're going to talk about that. But his site is Actual Agile, and I apologize. I had this thing running, and now it's not. He has a little more elegant Monte Carlo simulation. Okay, so for example, just got to back up again. So here is Actual Agile. This thing costs like $20 a month to use if you want to use it. I'm not a salesperson for Vacante's thing or anything, or 55 Degrees, this company. But once again, scatter plot, same kind of stuff, right? But we can actually go here. We can once again kind of say Monte Carlo when, and it'll give you once again a chart, and it kind of shows the simulation here is how long it's going to take us to do 100 stories. So we kind of see here, we want to begin today, and we want to use 100 stories. And we have the historical data already in there. It basically says there's an 80% chance that you'll get 100 stories done by 2024, January 16th. Once again, this is the simulated data. I could have plugged in real data here, but I was too lazy to do it. And it connects to Jira. It'll take in data from a CSV file, all that good kind of stuff. But the Monte Carlo to me it's much more valuable than velocity. It has a little bit more insight to what's going on because it uses, once again, percentage ranges. So, and this is once again, a powerful conversation to have with a product owner. If you're like getting to the point where you want to be done and you see you basically have a 30% chance of hitting that, that's a powerful conversation. Talk about cut and scope or what's going on or what do you think we can get there and all those kind of things. So that's what we use Monte Carlo for.
Dave, just a real quick, just
Yeah,
so everybody knows, with the Monte Carlo, the version that Dave showed there that we got from Troy McGinnis, that actually runs 500 simulations and uses that as the input. Actionable Agile, I think they use 10,000.
I think it's 10,000. It's in the thousands. Yeah.
Yeah. But statistically speaking, you really only need like 20 or 50.
Yeah, I mean, at one point it gets to be overkill. I can run a million simulations, but the bottom line is it's a mathematical simulation, and it's not going to give you. It's not a crystal ball. It's not going to tell you exactly when you're going to get done, but it'll give you percentages of out. So to give you an idea, Monte Carlo is not simply an agile thing. There are financial advisors that if you go sit down and talk about retirement, they'll run a Monte Carlo to show you what the probability is you're going to be able to retire at a certain age. It's just a math problem in the end, right? So that's all it is. It's statistical probabilities.
Dave, are we allowing questions from the audience right now, or do you want? It's okay, yeah. So I see Luciana has a question.
I just have a question on, so are you saying the Monte Carlo is good to use in complement if teams are doing story points, or there's certain scenarios where if a team is not doing story points, they just choose the Monte Carlo, they can do that on a standalone?
Oh, back to my chess example. Both. Do what you think is most valuable for your team. One of the things I like to do is, okay, so I'll let the cat out. I think I was going to show this to you next. If we go back to the teams that we, once again, like our cycle time analysis that we do, one of the things that we like to do with our cycle time is basically show how it correlates to story points. So you kind of see here that, once again, it's just data. Here we had a 1 point story. We had 84 occurrences of a 1 point story, but it took on average 8.45 days. That's probably a little bit much for a 1 point story, right? And our 2 point stories took about 9 days, almost negligible between one of the two. And those are, once again, conversations we could have with the team to make their estimation better. If you're not estimating, that's cool too. You just do the Monte Carlo. I think the Monte Carlo in conjunction with the story points is pretty powerful because it gives you a kind of a total picture of what's going on. So you can use the story points to have the team do things like burn down by story points during sprints or whatever they want to do. But you also have the Monte Carlo that gives you a more concise view or better statistical view of what you're going to do. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions before I go on? Because I just hit you with a lot of information, I realize. All right, so check out Troy McGinnis' stuff if you're interested in all this kind of stuff. So the two big questions. Will it fit in a sprint? Remember the three amigos, right? Complexity, effort, and doubt. And throughput or story points do it make sense, right? Don't discount the goodness of the discussions around Go. To me, that's golden. And that's why I would like my teams to use story points. The discussions around sizing, I think, are golden for the team. And it really does promote a lot of understanding about the work to be done. When it won't be done, the Monte Carlo simulation is not a crystal ball, so don't treat it like one. But it can lead to a healthy discussion about realistic completion. I don't know if you guys get this, but we get it all the time, where leadership doesn't care if we're being agile. They want to know when things are going to be done, right? Monte Carlo could definitely help with that. And once again, if you look at the Conte stuff, I think is this book title "When Will It Be Done," Randy? Something like that. Another book you can read is called Story Points, A Pointless Conversation. Another great book that talks about stuff.
He's got an excellent book called "When Will It Be Done."
Yes.
I highly recommend it. He also has one book, Actionable Agile Metrics. That's his first book. He has a second book, a follow-up to that is out on LeanPub right now. It will be out on Amazon in January, I believe.
Also good stuff, right? So once again, the way I look at it, it's, I don't want to get involved in the religious wars, but it's more tools in the toolbox to be able to help your team. And also the team SLE, which would be the 85th percentile of your cycle time, gives a realistic look at the size of backlog items. Think about that. Back to you should strive to have your SLE be around a sprint. So if you're doing 2-week sprints, your SLE should be 10 days or less. For a high-performing team, I want that to be half. I want your SLEs to be 5 days or less. Why? Because now smaller things fit in the sprints better, right? Allow you to pivot and do things. But that's the idea. That's what the SLE can do for you, is the general size of things. There's also, go ahead.
I'm sorry, there is a question in the chat. Whenever you guys are mentioning any books, Randy, I believe, right? Could you please post it in the chat, okay?
Yep, we'll get you a link. If Randy doesn't get to it, I will. Yeah, we'll get the books in there. Thank you for putting that out, because I would have forgotten, because I'm good at that. But that's the idea behind the 85th percentile of the SLE. It really gives a look at the size of backlog items. But there's one more very important thing that you should be focused on as an agile coach or a scrum master: aging work items. So you want to talk about aging work items. That means, you're looking at that SLE, you're looking at things that violate the SLE. So, what I like to do is, and there's reports you can run in Actual Agile. We have some reports we run on Rally, basically say, here are issues that have been open for more than 5 days, or stories that have been up, or PBIs, whatever you want to call them, that have been open for more than 5 days. Because you want to understand why that thing is aging, what you can do to get it closed, right? Because it's not about, a lot of teams I found as I've been coaching teams, a lot of teams take a lot of pride in planning well. We need to not focus on planning, but focus on finishing, right? Getting stuff done is what we're here to do. So aging work items is something you can really take a look at to see how that's impacting your cycle time and your throughput as well. The example I love to give is, hey, we're in a stand-up meeting, and for 3 days straight, Randy says no updates. That third day, somebody, be it the scrum master or somebody, what's going on, man? You need help? And that's where WIP comes into play once again, too. It's not about being busy, it's about getting stuff done. So if I can partner with you and get that story done today, I'm going to do that. You want to focus on aging work items and make sure that the aging work items are not going to beat you up, right? So, want to recap once again, will it fit? Size stories. Don't forget the 3 amigos. When will it be done? The Monte Carlo simulation. How's the team doing? Cycle time, throughput, WIP, and aging work items. Questions? Does this make sense, guys? Did I just blather on for an hour and put you to sleep? Did it jog any ideas in your memory? Anything you guys want to bring up?
So first, there is a lot of engagement in the chat. People are really interested. Dave, thank you so much for this presentation. It's a very interesting topic. It seems like people are really enthusiastic discussing it.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
Can't see the chat when I'm presenting, so yeah, I'll have to look at that.
Yeah.
You guys want to bring anything out here? You got me and Randy and Sharon here. We live this stuff, so we can probably help out if you got any questions.
Yeah, there's one of the questions was there are 2 team level metrics available. Teams doing Scrum, the average cycle time and the 99th percentile cycle time. Personally, I never use an average. The averages are just bad because of the fact that you're really at a 50 percentile. And from I typically use an 85th percentile cycle time with my teams. And that's kind of what I'm seeing with most companies. I don't want to say it's an industry standard, but
that's pretty close.
That's the most common that I've seen. So that's what I use with my teams. So obviously with the Monte Carlo's simulations that Dave showed, you can adjust the percentage that you want. You don't have to go with 85. You can go with 80. You can go 90. But I personally use 85.
And also be mindful of the time box or the span of time you're looking at, right? One of the mistakes a lot of folks will do, like you saw the spreadsheets I showed you, they're kind of for a pretty big span of time. But keep in mind that teams change and things happen. And maybe it's better to shrink that time span. You're looking at the cycle time or the throughput and things on to get a better view of what's going on. Once again, your mileage may vary. It's a tool, so use the tool accordingly. Now, don't shrink the time box so much that it makes things look good. Obviously, we want to get a realistic view of how the team is working, but that's another thing to keep in mind too. You shouldn't be looking at cycle time over a 5-year span. Like 6 months to a year usually is pretty good, depending on the team, what's going on.
We have another question here, Dave. Isn't story points unnecessary overhead when you're using cycle times, throughputs, etc.? Again, I think Dave kind of brought this out. I personally, if I have a team that wants to use story points, I'd say fine. If they don't want to use story points, I'm fine with that too. But it's more the conversation of, is everybody on the same page? To me, that's the most important thing, is to get everybody thinking the same. And so that's where I use story points if a team wants to. I never, ever, ever, ever use velocity. To me, that is a waste of time and it'll get you into trouble.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I'm always open to experimenting, right? So if a team doesn't want to use story points, fine. But to me, the golden thing about story points is fitting things in a sprint and not taking on. The big thing to me is not taking on too much work, because to me, so many people want to take on. I don't know if they want to look good for their management, or they want to impress the leaders, or they have an overly enthusiastic view of how they can get the work done. But if left to their own devices, almost every team I've worked with brings in too much work. We don't want to do that. I always under promise, over deliver. That's always a good thing, right? But they always bring in too much work, and work spills over the sprint, which is an anti-pattern. So it's one of those things where that's where I would tell if a team didn't want to size, great, don't. But if I start to see that behavior, we're going to go back to, okay, we need to start estimating again, because we're not estimating how much work we can do in the sprint correctly. That's an example of how I'd approach that. The team has to be mature enough to use story points. That's something that I really will beat that drum. If the team isn't mature enough not to use story points, don't let them. But that's up to you being with the team to understand that, right? And even mature teams, I work with some very mature teams. Some of them are sharing teams who got hung up because the work changed. An example I would give is we started mainframe developers. They code in assembler and COBOL and all that kind of stuff. And we started web enabling things using RESTful web services interfaces, or APIs, right? That was a whole new world. And these guys had to go back to square one and start thinking about how they size things again, because there's a ton of complexity and doubt there. And even if you don't want to size things, that's great. Always keep complexity, effort, and doubt in the back of your mind when you're thinking about stuff. Those things are still there. Just try to understand it with the team if they're not going to size things. That's all.
All right, here's another question for you, Dave. What would you say to a team using Kanban used to use Scrum, who take time to add story points, but without having discussions around the stories? How would you help the team get more value from adding points or dropping points?
If you're using Kanban, it's pure Kanban, not Scrumban. And there's two versions, right? Pure Kanban is simply a pull system. Now you have a new column, that's where the stories live. The PO will order the new column, and you pull work as it becomes available, right? And to use pure Kanban, WIP is what drives the engine, right? You have to have WIP limits on those columns. If you don't, it's basically chaos. If it's that way, you don't really have to size things, right? The only benefit I would see to sizing stories in that case would be you understand that you're not pulling something that's too big to get done, right? Now, if it's more of a Scrumban thing where you get or Scrum with Kanban, which is a class Randy and I took a couple years ago, then all the rules still kind of apply, because you're still sprinting, but you're using a Kanban-based method to get through the sprints. So all the rules still apply. You adjust your workflow. You have WIP limits in place, but then it's a little more attractive to story point things. So it depends on the work and depends on the team. In a pure Kanban sense, though, you don't really need to estimate things, because you're not sprinting. You're just pulling things as it becomes available, managing your WIP, and getting things done as fast as you can.
All right, we have another couple of questions here. How do you suggest using Monte Carlo at portfolio levels where multiple teams are delivering features? What would we do differently when using it for one team versus multiple teams?
Not much, actually.
And
it's all work in hand, right? So go ahead, Randy.
I can take that one. The only thing I can say is from my own personal experience, I have not had a lot of need to do this. In the area I'm at, we pretty much have one team per product, but I have had a few instances where I did have two teams working on the same product at a portfolio level. And in that situation, I ran a Monte Carlo for each team, and I kind of, did some analysis on the two. I would avoid taking the data and putting it together as if you had just one big team. I did play around with that, honestly, to an extent, but I found it was better off doing it for each individual team, because each individual team had a different throughput rate. So that was my experience. There's probably a better experience. I haven't had to do it often, so I can only share with my own experience.
Now, my experience is I do have projects where we have multiple teams working out of the same backlog on the same project. But I like what Randy said. Each team's going to be different. So you don't want to fall into the trap of combining everything. So basically you have teams, they have X amount of work to do. You can run the Monte Carlos against that work and then understand how it all comes together in the end. Or you can use the cut line forecaster like I kind of showed you and kind of work it feature by feature, depending on how the features are set up. We do have features per team, and we do have multiple teams working on the same feature. That stuff can also work the same way.
Yeah, I think Steve has got his hand raised. I'm not sure if we can
sure.
Unmute.
Thank you. No. I unmuted myself. So I'm going to avoid the religious wars, but I like what you said about, the things that engender conversations that need to be had. Mm-hmm. So which is important. And the one thing I forget, and I like that you put in, okay, let's look at the complexity, how well known the problem is, et cetera. I thought that was good. The one thing that I thought was missing was dependencies. Like, are we dependent on any other teams, which I think is a big risk, but that's okay. My question I'll finally get to is what other methods of engendering conversations that need to be had to help people get the feedback so they can better decide. And then this is probably outside the conversation, like the thing that I also was missing here. I mean, it's one piece of the pie, right? There's the whole value Reinertson economic flow thing, right? And that's something I struggle with, is how we get people to actually estimate value and then give them feedback on their estimates.
Well, yeah. So estimating value is a completely different animal. Believe me, we've tried that and we've failed miserably every time we tried it. It's back to, what is business value? And the way the story I always tell is, okay, we live in medieval times and the Vikings are coming, right? We see the Viking longships, so we dig a moat around our village, right? And we fill it with water and we fill it with alligators. Now, normally digging a hole is not a very valuable thing, but when the Vikings are coming, it's super valuable. What if they never come? Well, how do you judge the value of what you just did, right? Did we scare them off, or were they not coming at all? Or so that's the problem, judging value on stuff, right? And also sometimes you don't realize value until years down the road. So
that also leads into I was going to ask on the types of stories, right? You have risk stories, which the moat would be one, right? You have defects, you have features, etc. But that's so
And for the lack of that, we could have went there, but for the sake of simplicity, I didn't go there. But yes, you're right. That's something else to think about. Dependencies are also huge. Now, an agile purist would say the best way to deal with dependencies is not to have them, but that's not real life. So that definitely has to drive a conversation and over communication of expectations and reality, right? So there's that as well. But as far as the conversations, so here's a kick I've been on for a while, and Randy's going to roll his eyes when I start saying this. A team has to be accountable to each other. And that's one of the things and so often one of the places where Agile falls down is teams fail to realize this. They're like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Well, that's not the idea, right? The idea is you determine what to do. You're accountable to each other to get it done, and it comes across the finish line. If you can instill that accountability in the team, then those conversations start to naturally happen, right? And that's part of it. And and this is why, once again, and this is funny. Whenever I see somebody I used to work with a long time ago, one of my old Air Force buddies, they'll say, "What do you do?" "I'm an Agile coach." "Oh, which sports team?" "No, I don't coach sports. I coach, I coach Agile." "What's that mean?" And I say, "Well, pretty much I take people who are very smart with very advanced degrees and treat them like kindergartners. I make them talk to each other." How you do that? Every team's different, and there's a billion different ways you can make that happen. But the bottom line is they have to understand the accountability matrix, meaning, I don't know if I told you guys this or not. There's an article in Harvard Business Review I've stumbled across a couple of weeks ago, and I've been preaching this. It basically said, and there's Project Aristotle by Google, if you guys ever heard of that. Basically, what Project Aristotle was Google went out to try to figure out what a high-performing team, what's the differentiator between a high-performing team? And the idea, the thing was nothing more than psychological safety. And this was Google. They looked at every kind of data possibility there was. And we go a little deeper in that. What's that mean? Well, the Harvard Business Review did an article that said a low-performing team is accountable to nobody. A mediocre team is accountable to their manager. A high-performing team are accountable to each other. And that is that vulnerability based trust that they talk about in the seven the seven dysfunctions of a team. It all comes back to that, right? Where I feel safe enough where we can have that accountability within the team. So I don't care. I'm not worried about my boss telling me what to do. I'm not worried about my boss being upset if we don't produce. I'm upset if we don't produce because I let you down, right? And that fosters those communications back and forth between the team. Now that's tough because that's what I refer to as the icky human stuff, right? It's not whether you use Python or Java or anything else. It's getting the human beings to act like humans and to actually talk to each other, right? That gets a little rough sometimes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
All right. There was a part 2 of one of the questions there.
I got a part 2. Oh.
Let me bring it up here. I was doing some research on something else here because there's somebody who's asking for additional resources and things like that. I was trying to get some things. What scatter plots can tell us in optimizing the size of our batches to maximize throughput?
Ooh, you want to take that one, Randy? Let me tell you.
Well, I'm not sure if the scatter plots can help you maximize or optimize the sizes of the batches, but with the scatter plots, there are Vacante's first book, Actionable Agile Metrics. He does show you that you can see a lot of patterns in a scatter plot. I do highly recommend taking a look at that from reading a scatter plot, because a scatter plot can tell you a lot of things based on the team. I don't know if it could actually help you optimize the size of your batch. But you can kind of see from when you have things that one of the things that Vicante really pushes is the work item age, and Dave kind of touched on that, is the age of things. Is if you keep your work item age down, that's going to keep your WIP low, your cycle time is going to be low, and he really pushes that as that's really probably the number one thing to focus on, and that naturally will keep your batch sizes lower. So those are, it's all conjunction with that. And, like I said, it really does impact WIP and things like that. So that's, from the scatter plot, that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, but the cumulative flow, which I'm showing you now, is where you get the idea of the batch sizes. So you'll kind of see, this is a very good cumulative flow because the blue is the actual done, and this is the stuff they're actually getting done. But then the gray is the queue, right? But you'll kind of see the queue kind of stays in line with stuff as it gets done, right? A bad one will kind of show the queue growing while the done is not, right? So the cumulative flow is a better way to show the queuing and Little's law as opposed to the scatter plot.
And we do have another question on how do you drive down context switching when the team is doing that as part of the company culture?
You have one of those courageous conversations about it. So here's the thing, right? It's not hard to bring up the idea of context switching and how bad it is, right? How it really does lengthen up the length of time it takes to get things done. So I'm a big experiment guy, right? Now there are places like, for example, where we work where the teams are very badly siloed, right? This guy only knows this piece of the product, or this guy only knows how to code in this language, and he can't really take on or help anybody else with the work because of the way the team's siloed. Well, that's a situation that's much harder to address. But if a team isn't siloed, and this is the way they work, once again, I would throw an experiment out there. Hey, let's experiment limiting our WIP and pair programming or doing what we can do to try to, instead of context switching, focus on one thing till it's done, and then focus on the next thing till it's done, and the next thing till it's done, and see if it increases our throughput at all. I like to say, it's better to have 100% of your backlog 50% done. It's better to have 50% of your backlog 100% done than 100% of your backlog 50% done. Temporary dyslexia, I'm sorry. Why? Because we value done. It's back to valuing done, not valuing being busy or valuing planning. It's getting stuff done that we value, right? So if we can talk a team, just one team, into running that experiment for a sprint and seeing or a sprint or two, and seeing how to fix their throughput, then you might have an interesting conversation about the outcomes. If that makes sense, right? Because what we do is always a value proposition, right? It comes back to once we can prove the value of something, people see the value, then it becomes a whole lot easier to get people to come on board with it. I just had a breakthrough. We have UX designers in Broadcom, right? And they would not use Rally as their workout for their single source of truth. They didn't want to use it. They said, I hate Rally. I don't want to put stuff in Rally. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay. And I got a small subset of them. And I said, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make your work visible. And then we're going to prioritize your work, right? So everybody can see your prioritization and see what you're doing and see what you're accomplishing. All of a sudden, they're like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I'm not getting asked questions about what I'm doing anymore. People understand what I'm doing. People are happy with what I'm doing. I was like, yeah, imagine that, huh? Now guess what's happening? All those people that wouldn't talk to me before coming over and say, hey, can you show us how to do that? It is a value proposition in the end. So if you're in a culture that, values context switching, see if you can break just a small little subset of those folks free and have them experiment not doing that and seeing how it affects their work and seeing if you can get a good success story out there and see if you can switch the culture that way.
And we did have one more question, Dave. You mentioned SAFE. There are SAFE nomenclature in the spreadsheets. I'm not sure if there was, but I'm not a SAFE kind of guy. But are you still advocating an IP interval at some point, are as continuous sprints, and does that affect the cycle time and the tools you use to predict?
Cycle time doesn't care if you're sprinting or not sprinting or using SAFE or less or whatever. It's just basically cycle time looks at a time box.
It'll work for waterfall.
Works for waterfall, works for Kanban, works for everything. Now, I will say we are recovering SAFE shop. Meaning we were SAFE for a while. We did away with some of the SAFE constructs, but we kept the stuff that worked for us. So a lot of the stuff you see there is stuff that we do. Now we still plan by quarter, but we don't do PI planning. We don't plan the whole quarter out in grotesque detail like we used to when we were SAFE. What we do is we tell the teams to come together, figure out what you think you can do for the quarter. Now,
some areas, Dave.
Some do, some don't. So we're probably the most SAFE left. Like Randy's group completely dismantled it. We still do quarterly readouts, meaning we get the teams together and we say, tell us what features you think you can get done this quarter. And then plan out the first few sprints. And then we're going to actually continuously plan through the quarter, get this, and as things change, we'll report back up what we did. We kept the idea of the alignment, the capability, the feature, the story, the task thing. We kept that stuff going. We still kind of read out every quarter because that's what our leadership likes, right? Because they get to read out to the executives every quarter.
Right.
That's kind of what we're doing. So yeah, we're kind of SAFE, but not SAFE.
Yeah, and the real question is, are you setting aside like a sprint or an iteration to actually do that time and take that time off so that you can actually take a breath? Because when everybody talks about Scrum and Agile, they basically talk about continuous sprints in perpetuity, which is physically impossible. And that's the reason why I was asking about, do you factor that in? How do you factor that break?
Not every quarter.
Not every quarter.
We do.
I will say,
go ahead, Randy.
I will say in my areas, we do a continuous planning where we're continually planning and updating. And we do not take a sprint off or have a buffer week or anything like that. We're continuously, we do sprint after sprint after sprint, but we are continuously planning, always updating the plan at the end of every sprint, because let's face it, at the end of every sprint, you have new information. And we take that and we put that into the plan. And so that's the way they do it. We do it in my area. Not all of the areas that where Dave and I work do the same thing. But that's the approach that I do.
In mine, you usually, it's not really a buffer week. It's like a buffer 3 or 4 days to get ready for readouts and stuff, and make sure that stuff's all together. So it is kind of there, but once again, it's guardrail. So the team could use that to get stuff done if they have to.
Yeah. Or hackathon or whatever. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't do a true, what do they call that? IP sprint and say where you did the you did the solution demo and the IP workshop. Now we did basically, but when we do readouts, that time is kind of like lag time. So yeah, but it's not really a sprint. It's a couple of days.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah. And we're, once again, one of the things that we embrace, and one of the things I'm a big proponent of is different strokes for different folks. Every value stream in Broadcom does it differently, slightly differently. once again, chessboard. They're still playing chess, but we do it slightly differently because it works for them. I don't, I'm not big on being heavy-handed across the whole company. Let the teams, let the functions figure out the best way for them. And as long as it fits within the framework, go at it.
I know that Navaz at some point was very active with questions. Navaz, is there anything else that you would like to discuss, or have your answers already been all answered?
Thank you. No, everything has been answered. Thanks.
Good, thank you. Prakash, also, I saw you being very active at some point. Is there anything you would like to talk about or to ask Dave? Prakash. Okay, so looks like.
Oh, I'll just say that, I am not a subject matter expert, but I'm just sharing with you guys how we do it, with the stuff we've had success with. And I know there was the thing about no estimates before. And hey, you know what? It's not a bad thing. It's once again, it's another flavor of what we're trying to do. It's, like I said, I try to stay out of the religious wars, right? So any more questions?
Rakesh doesn't know how to unmute.
Oh yeah, I got to it. I'm on a phone, so my apologies. No, short answer, no. This was really informational, and I think we got like a treasure trove of information, which I think we are going to follow up on. But thank you so much.
Yeah, and what
Really
I promise I'll do is Randy and I'll get together tomorrow. We'll make sure that we give you links to all the stuff that I probably should have given you links to in the presentation. See, my Achilles heel is always attention to detail. So, but we'll make sure that you guys got that stuff. I will also say that I keep threatening Ken, if you guys ever start doing in-person meetings again, I might just show up at one. It's not that far of a drive away from Pittsburgh to get out there. Also, I will invite you guys every year here in Pittsburgh. If you go to pitagile.net, I'll send you a link to that. Every year we do our own little Agile conference here in Pittsburgh. And we're pretty successful this year. We actually had about 180 people come to it this time around. And you all are more than welcome to come on out and see us too. So more than happy to, once again, to me, it's about building the tribe, right? And we are all like-minded individuals who, in the end, just want to make the places we work better, right? We want to get a better place to work. And that's what we're really about. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you guys. If you have any offline questions or anything else that you would like to ask me or Brandy or anything, just feel free to reach out. Hit me up on LinkedIn or, tell Kenny you need my email address. I'm sure he'll give it to you. And more than happy, man. My job, I look at it this way. I talked before about people. I like to go to people who hate Agile and find out why, because I really do think this is the way to get. This is the best way to work, and I like to help people make it work for them. That's kind of what I do. So.
And I'd like to second too that if anything that I can help out with, or please reach out to me as well. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to answer questions. I don't consider myself a subject matter expert on this stuff either, but I've been working with it for a while, and I swear I'm keep learning things every day.
Yeah, I like to tell everybody I'm the king of mess with it till it works. So I'm good at puttering around with things until they work. So that's what I do with Agile too. So don't get all the answers, but we can probably figure out the best way for you guys to do things if we putter around enough, right? So.
Dave, I'm actually in Pittsburgh, so I may take your invitation literally.
Yeah, come on up, man. So check out Pit Agile and come on over. We have a pretty good Agile community in Pittsburgh too. We've actually been growing. So, yeah.
I'd be happy to join. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will probably find you on LinkedIn. I will connect there, and then I will proceed from there. Mm-hmm.
Please do. I think we're going to do an in-person thing in January. I think at Rivers Agile, but we'll see. So yeah.
Very nice. So in general, it has been a very vivid discussion, and people are enjoying enormously this conversation, what I see from the chat. We guys are doing this recording, so once we finish this meeting, I will process the recording and we will post it on our I think we have a YouTube channel, right? Can someone help me, Andrea?
Yes, we do. Let me find the link.
So we will upload this recording to our YouTube channel. We will share with everyone through Slack. Slack is our main communication channel. So if you are not yet on Slack, go ahead and join our Slack channel. Can you once again maybe post, Andrea, if you have it handy, or Fernando, if you have it handy, can you please, just take a look in the chat right now. Here, you will see the link to our Slack YouTube channel. And can you also share the Slack channel once again? You did it in the beginning, but just in case, once again, for the folks who are not yet on in our Slack, make sure you join our Slack channel. And Dave, people are very, very grateful to you. This was a very interesting and very packed with information, this discussion.
I am very grateful for the opportunity to present because I love doing this. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much. Okay, then this is the last event of this year, guys. Dave, you had the honor of summarizing our year of events in 2023. Thank you for that. And we hope everyone has very good and nice holidays. We are hoping to see each other in January. End of January is going to be a really interesting discussion. Again, to remind you, it will be a panel discussion on the topic of the future of Agile. Several people who are well known in Agile community will be talking about the future of Agile. Join us in January. It will be announced through meetup.com. In the meantime, let's stay in touch over Slack. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Dave. Yes, thank you guys. Merry Christmas.
Yep,
and Happy
thank
New
you.
Year.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everyone. And Dave, I will find you. And I didn't know in the beginning that you are from Pittsburgh. That's nice.
Yeah. So yeah, let's hook up. Lots of good stuff happening in Pittsburgh too. And I love the Princeton agility stuff. So yeah, let's have a coffee sometime. That'll be good.
I am a member of PDMA, you know, product management community, and that's the only community I'm a member of in Pittsburgh. So I'll be happy to join the Agile community as well. That's cool.
All right.
Okay, I will connect with you through LinkedIn, and I hope you have a really cool holiday season.
Oh, that's my yard behind me. That's what my house looks like. So I'm ready.
Yeah, you are like enjoying it full scale. Okay.
All right.
Bye, guys. Thank you,
Guys, thank you.
everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.